Richard Myers thought he had everything: a successful career, a beautiful wife, and a brother he trusted with his life. But when his younger brother Thomas was found missing, Richard's world shattered. Behind closed doors, Clara, his wife, had been hiding a devastating secret. A forbidden affair with Thomas that would ultimately lead to betrayal, infection, and murder. As the truth came to light, Richard was left to piece together the horrifying reality of the woman he once loved, and the brother he lost forever. In the quiet, tree-lined neighborhood of East Haven, just outside Atlanta, the Myers family lived in a picturesque two-story home with a manicured lawn and a porch swing that creaked gently in the breeze. To anyone looking in, their lives seemed perfect, almost too perfect. Richard Myers was a 38-year-old financial consultant who had built a solid reputation for his integrity and calm, measured demeanor. His career was thriving, and his clients trusted him implicitly. Clara, his wife of 9 years, was known for her poise and grace. She stayed home to take care of their 5-year-old daughter Lily and volunteered at the local library. Together they presented the image of a dream life, successful, loving, and deeply admired in their community. Clara hosted neighborhood brunches, baked for school fundraisers, and never missed a PTA meeting. Richard, though often busy, always made time to attend Lily's recitals and kept up the appearance of a present, attentive husband. They smiled for photos, shared inside jokes at dinner parties, and waved politely to neighbors during morning jogs. Friends often joked that if you looked up "perfect couple" in the dictionary, you'd see a picture of the Myers family smiling back at you. But there was another figure frequently seen around the house: Richard's younger brother, Thomas. At 32, Thomas was the opposite of Richard in many ways. He was more casual, less structured, and had a string of odd jobs behind him. Still, he was charming, charismatic, and had a knack for making people laugh. After a rough breakup and a job loss, Richard had invited Thomas to stay with them temporarily until he got back on his feet. What was meant to be a few weeks stretched into several months. Thomas quickly became a fixture in their home. He helped Clara around the house, picked up Lily from preschool, and handled small repairs that Richard didn't have time for. He was the fun uncle, the one who turned on music in the kitchen while cooking, told silly bedtime stories, and made ordinary days feel lighter. At first, Clara appreciated his presence. He brought a sense of ease and liveliness to her otherwise routine days. With Richard often buried in work, Thomas filled a quiet space in her life she hadn't realized was empty. As the weeks went on, their bond grew. They'd sit outside after Lily went to bed, sipping wine, and talking about everything from childhood memories to dreams they never pursued. The lines began to blur. What started as casual conversation turned into subtle moments of tension. There were lingering looks, quiet pauses, a hand brushing a little too long. But Clara was careful. She was always composed, always smiling. Nothing ever looked out of place. To neighbors, the Myers family only became more admirable. Clara seemed to manage everything so well: her daughter, the house, even her brother-in-law. Richard continued to work hard, unaware that while he built their future, the foundation of their home was already cracking. Behind closed doors, something dangerous was taking root, hidden under layers of perfection, waiting to unravel everything they had built. The trouble hadn't surfaced yet, but it was coming, quietly, slowly. And once it started, nothing would ever be the same. The shift between Clara and Thomas happened gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. What began as innocent familiarity evolved into something more complicated, more dangerous. With Richard's demanding job pulling him away for longer hours, Clara and Thomas found themselves spending more time alone together. Their conversations grew deeper, their laughs more personal, and the air between them subtly thickened with tension. The boundaries that once seemed so clear began to blur, quietly and steadily. Clara, always careful, never let her guard down fully. But in the small, quiet moments, when Thomas reached for the same coffee mug at breakfast, or brushed against her hand while passing the salt, there was an unspoken electricity. They never addressed it, never acknowledged the slow burn between them. Yet it was there, undeniable and growing stronger with each passing day. Thomas, more impulsive by nature, leaned into it. He craved the attention, the feeling of being needed, of being seen. Clara, on the other hand, battled with her guilt. But she also couldn't deny the thrill of it. For the first time in years, she felt alive. Eventually the line was crossed. One late afternoon, while Lily napped and Richard was stuck in a meeting downtown, Clara and Thomas gave in to the tension that had been building for months. Afterward, there was silence, thick and confusing. But instead of pulling back, they crossed the line again, and again. It became a pattern, a ritual, always when the house was quiet, always with a careful eye on the clock. They told themselves it was just physical, a mistake they could one day walk away from. But deep down, both knew that wasn't true. They developed a system to avoid suspicion. Clara kept a second phone, hidden in a locked drawer in her home office. Thomas used a different email account to communicate. They created alibis for the brief times they'd sneak away to hotels on the outskirts of town. They were methodical, obsessed with secrecy. Every smile at dinner, every family photo, every school event became a mask for the betrayal they were both part of. But something darker was brewing beneath the surface, something Clara hadn't planned for. Around 6 months into the affair, she received news that changed everything. During a routine doctor's appointment, she was diagnosed with HIV. The shock hit her like a tidal wave. Her mind raced back through every moment, every decision. She hadn't told anyone, not Richard, not even Thomas. She went numb. Despite the diagnosis, Clara continued the affair. She rationalized it, telling herself that the risk was low, that it was too late to change anything. But in truth, fear had taken a back seat to desperation. She was too deep in lies to back out. Thomas, unaware of her diagnosis, noticed small changes. Clara became quieter, more withdrawn at times, more careful. But he never suspected the truth. When he started experiencing fatigue and flu-like symptoms, he brushed it off. He thought he was just worn down, maybe catching a seasonal virus. Clara watched him closely, silently haunted by what she had done. Her fear of being exposed outweighed any guilt. She didn't seek treatment, didn't warn him. Her focus was entirely on keeping the secret buried. She believed that as long as no one found out, life could go on. But the truth has a way of finding its way to the surface, and the cracks in their carefully constructed facade were about to split wide open. The first signs that something was wrong came quietly. Thomas began to feel exhausted all the time. Simple tasks left him winded, and a persistent cough lingered for weeks. At first, he dismissed it, chalking it up to stress or a poor diet. He had recently left another short-term job and was bouncing between gigs, staying on Richard's couch more often than not. His life lacked routine, and he figured his health had just slipped because of that. But the symptoms got worse. Night sweats soaked his sheets. He lost weight rapidly and started getting frequent mouth sores. He tried over-the-counter remedies and stayed away from doctors, afraid of what he might hear. Eventually, though, the fatigue became unbearable. He could no longer ignore it. When the results came back, he stared at them in disbelief. HIV positive. The nurse explained the diagnosis with clinical care, but the words barely registered. His mind was spinning. How? When? The only partner he had been with in the past year was Clara. That horrifying realization struck him with a force he wasn't prepared for. His hand shook. His stomach turned. Rage and heartbreak hit him all at once. He confronted Clara privately. The fear in her eyes confirmed everything. She didn't deny it. She begged him not to tell Richard, insisting it would destroy not just her life but Lily's too. She told him it had all been a mistake, that she never meant for any of this to happen. But Thomas was beyond reason. He had trusted her. He had trusted them. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was deep and personal. His life was forever changed, and the person responsible had hidden the truth from him with a smile. After that confrontation, Thomas began to unravel. He stopped going to family dinners. He avoided Richard completely. When Richard asked what was going on, Thomas lied, said he was just dealing with work stress. But inside, he was crumbling. He resented Clara, but part of him still longed for answers. He didn't understand why she continued the affair after her diagnosis, why she never warned him, why she let him walk blindly into a life-altering illness. Meanwhile, Clara became paranoid. She started checking Thomas's social media for any hint of exposure. She feared he might tell someone, maybe not Richard but a friend, a coworker, anyone. Every moment felt like a countdown to disaster. She became jumpy, controlling, and obsessive. She installed a home security system citing safety concerns, but really she just wanted to track who came and went. She deleted old texts, burned paper notes, and cleaned every digital trail she could think of. Despite everything, Thomas didn't go public. He didn't tell Richard, but his silence wasn't forgiveness. It was torment. He withdrew further, spending hours alone in his car or at the edge of town just trying to think. Clara's once charming brother-in-law now looked like a ghost of himself. Their secret had turned toxic, spreading like poison through every part of their lives. The atmosphere in the Myers household shifted. The warmth faded. Smiles became forced. Clara moved through her days with dread, waiting for the moment the truth would finally erupt. But what neither of them expected was that something far worse was coming. Something permanent. It was a rainy Thursday when Thomas went missing. The day had started like any other. Gray skies, a slow drizzle, and the usual traffic hum on the streets of East Haven. Clara noticed he hadn't come by the house in a few days, but she didn't mention it to Richard. She had learned to act unconcerned, to treat Thomas's mood swings and disappearances as just part of who he was. But deep down, she felt something different this time. A heaviness. A silence that felt final. That evening, Richard received a call from Thomas's roommate. He hadn't seen or heard from him in 3 days. His wallet was still at home, and his phone had been found inside his parked car, abandoned in a lot near a wooded area 2 towns away. The keys were still in the ignition, but Thomas was nowhere to be found. A missing persons report was filed, and search teams were dispatched to the area. Drones scanned the woods, dogs combed through brush, and volunteers put up flyers around town. But there were no signs of Thomas. No witnesses, no answers. Just an empty car and an eerie, unexplained disappearance. Richard was devastated. He couldn't understand why his brother would vanish without a word. He started to blame himself, thinking maybe he'd been too hard on Thomas, too distant. Clara comforted him, played the supportive wife, helped organize community searches, and stood in front of news cameras, pleading for information. Her performance was convincing. She looked tired, emotional, and scared. But the detectives assigned to the case weren't entirely convinced by what they saw. As the days passed with no leads, they began to dig deeper. Thomas's recent behavior raised flags. His health had been deteriorating, his mental state shifting. He'd cut ties with family and friends. They looked into his medical records, then into his social life, and finally into his digital footprint. What they found didn't line up with the version of events Clara had offered. Deleted text messages were recovered through phone data extraction. Hundreds of messages between Clara and Thomas painted a picture of a long emotional affair, filled with passion, tension, and desperation. There were arguments, pleas to keep secrets, and cryptic references to something getting out. Surveillance footage from a gas station near the woods revealed Clara's car driving past late the night before Thomas's phone was found. She had told detectives she had been home with Lily all night. The footage told a different story. Armed with this information, the police obtained a warrant and searched Clara's storage unit. Inside, hidden behind bins of seasonal decorations and old clothes, they discovered a plastic container filled with cleaning supplies, gloves, and a large tarp. The tarp was stained with what appeared to be blood. Forensic analysis confirmed it. Thomas's DNA was all over it. Clara was arrested 2 days later. The community was stunned. The news spread fast and the narrative shifted from a tragic disappearance to something far more sinister. Richard, blindsided and broken, struggled to process the reality unfolding around him. The woman he had trusted with his life, the mother of his child, was now the prime suspect in his brother's likely murder. And still, Thomas's body had not been found. The arrest of Clara sent shockwaves through East Haven. People who had known the Myers family for years were left in disbelief. How could Clara, the poised, gracious woman who had hosted countless gatherings, been capable of something so horrific? Richard, the man who had built a life around trust and integrity, was now forced to confront the unthinkable. His wife was not only involved in his brother's disappearance, but had played a part in a crime so dark, it threatened to tear his entire world apart. Clara's arrest brought a flurry of media attention. News vans lined the streets of the once quiet neighborhood. People whispered in grocery store aisles, speculating about what had really happened behind closed doors. The picture-perfect image of the Myers family began to unravel in front of everyone, exposing the web of lies that had been spun for years. At first, Clara maintained her innocence. She claimed she didn't know what had happened to Thomas, insisting that she had nothing to do with his disappearance. But as the police continued to gather evidence, including the blood-stained tarp found in the storage unit, her story started to fall apart. The evidence pointed squarely at her. They had found traces of Thomas's blood in places she couldn't explain, and forensic experts suggested that she had carefully cleaned up after what appeared to be a violent confrontation. As the investigation deepened, the truth came to light in chilling detail. Clara admitted to everything, but the truth was even darker than anyone had imagined. She confessed that after her affair with Thomas had been exposed, she felt trapped. She had feared losing everything: her marriage, her daughter, her perfect life. When Thomas had confronted her about the HIV diagnosis, she panicked. She had never intended for things to go this far, but the guilt of her actions had twisted her mind. She knew that if Thomas told Richard, everything would be destroyed. So Clara made a decision. She invited Thomas to meet in the woods under the guise of trying to reconcile and ease his anger. But when Thomas arrived, she had something far more sinister planned. In her confession, she explained that she had brought a knife with her that night, intending to silence Thomas permanently. The details were gruesome. She stabbed him, and in the struggle that followed, Thomas's blood stained the tarp she had brought to dispose of the evidence. But even as she described the murder, Clara's words were cold, devoid of the emotional turmoil one might expect from a woman describing the death of her brother-in-law. The real shock, however, was the chilling revelation that Clara had never told Richard about her HIV diagnosis, something she had known for months before the affair with Thomas even started. She had been living with the disease in secret, a fact she had concealed from everyone, including Thomas, whom she had knowingly infected. Her reasons were murky, clouded by fear, shame, and a desire to protect her perfect life. It was as if the affair, the lies, and the eventual murder were all part of a desperate attempt to control the unraveling of her carefully curated world. As the trial approached, the details of Clara's betrayal left everyone in shock. Richard struggled to reconcile the woman he had loved with the monster she had become. He filed for divorce immediately, seeking to protect Lily from the emotional wreckage Clara had left behind. The community, too, found itself grappling with the horrific realization that the woman they had admired was capable of something so monstrous. Clara was eventually convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Her fate was sealed, but Thomas's body was never recovered. Richard and Lily moved far away, starting over in a place where the ghosts of the past couldn't haunt them. For Richard, the pain of losing both his brother and his wife was overwhelming, and he had no closure. As for Clara, her story came to a tragic, violent end. A cautionary tale of betrayal, deception, and the darkest parts of human nature. The town would never be the same, and neither would the lives of the people who had once been the closest to her.